Hey folks, this is Jason Lewis, the producer of the From the Shadows podcast. I just want to remind you about our website, FromTheShadowsPodcast.com. We have a Facebook page. We would appreciate it if you like and follow. Also, join our discussion group on Facebook called After the Shadows. We have a Twitter feed. Please follow us on Twitter. It can be found with @podcast_from. Follow us on Instagram at From the Shadows Podcast. We have a YouTube channel. Go to the search bar at YouTube and put From the Shadows Podcast, and please subscribe to that channel. We are also on the Odyssey Radio Network, and we can be found there at odyssey1.com. We're still on the traditional podcatchers that everybody loves to listen to us on. We get a lot of feedback, so please rate the podcast and communicate with whether you're on Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, or Google Podcasts. We're there, and we appreciate it when you leave comments for us. We also have a Patreon page. It can be found at www.patreon.com/FromTheShadows. You can receive books, stickers, coffee mugs, and special content just for our Patreon subscribers. Check it out for yourself and see what packages that we have to offer. Well, that's all I have for you right now, folks, and thanks for being a part of the From the Shadows podcast family. So with that being said, let's get this episode started.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of the From the Shadows podcast. And I am your host, Shane Grove, and with me as always is the super producer, Jason.
How's it going, everybody? Greetings.
And if you can hear the background, we're here live at our special studio deep in the heart of suburban lanes in Bucyrus, Ohio. You know, so
home away from home.
Home away from home. Like every once in a while we got to take Jason out. He likes to hear the sound of bowling balls and strikes and spares being picked up or missed, and you know, it just kind of, he looks over at the sign that there's karaoke on Friday night, and he wishes he could come back and do his best Barry White or Isaac Hayes. I think he looks a little bit like Isaac Hayes. Can you do the theme from Shaft?
No, I can't, unfortunately.
Jason's like, shut up, man.
If I could, we'll do it and put it on the YouTube channel.
I'll do Barry White, and you can do Isaac Hayes. All right.
That'll work.
Well, joining us tonight is a very special guest. And I think he's probably going to, you know, just from some of the stories he's telling us before we came on, I think everybody needs to pause right now. Go get some popcorn, go get some potato chips, find a nice comfy chair, you know, maybe a big glass of pop or something, you know, something that you could sit back and enjoy these stories that we're going to be told. So joining us from deep in the heart of North Carolina is Jonathan. Jonathan, how's it going?
All right, man. How y'all doing?
We're doing good. Thank you.
You're sounding good.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you share some of the stuff that you've been sharing with us, with everybody that's listening. So do you want to kind of tell our listeners what your story is, you know, why we have you on here?
Well, gosh, my first memory, I think, was of me sticking a coat hanger in my mouth and yanking on it and creating my first dimple. And I remember paisley wallpaper. And then that was my first memory. But pretty much every memory after that is being surrounded by spirits at night before I went to bed, or right as I was going to bed and going to sleep. And I used to have night terrors as a child, and this went on for a few years. I would actually wake my parents up, and I wouldn't be awake. I wouldn't even remember what happened. And you know, my parents would just tell me, "Well, wow, you know, you got up during the night and you were saying, help me. And, you know, you wouldn't calm down till you got in between us or whatever." I was just like, oh, I didn't know how to explain what was happening, you know. And as I got older, I dealt with some mental health issues. But I think too, as we get even older, sometimes you realize that it's not so much mental health issues; it's misdiagnosis of just emotional problems at the time. But I was institutionalized 3 times as a teenager. I had 10 different mental illness diagnoses by the time I was 18 years old. And I was doing drugs, throughout those years, and still seeing spirits and having problems in school and so on. And gosh, at 19, I had a stroke. And it was a mild stroke. It wasn't debilitating, but it definitely, I could feel blood pumping in the back of my head at the base of my skull when it happened, and blood pressure was through the roof. And then I had some cognitive disabilities, for the next few years, just understanding things and comprehending things, but nothing super major. I actually got into school and did horticulture and finished that best I could, but as much as I needed to, and started my own business. And from there, I've had a lot of major spiritual experiences in my life. I'm a witch. I've had several what are called initiation periods, where you'll encounter a certain type of spiritual entity which will appear to you, and they'll stay with you for a week or two. Sorry, I got some noise in the background here too.
It's not as cool. It's not as cool as a bowling alley, though. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, no, it's not. Never here. Just nothing but dump trucks here. But and anyways, I had several initiation periods, and these entities would come to me, and they would spend time with me for about 2 weeks, and I would have to go through these lesson learning periods. And naturally, I say, well, I dealt with mental illness and so on like that. I've never had a hallucination in my life that wasn't induced by drugs. I've never seen something that wasn't there. I've actually had witnesses to several of my experiences, and I've been having experiences throughout my life, and there are just people in this world that just tend to be batteries to the paranormal.
I would agree with that totally. Now, before we get too far, let me ask you: was this stuff so crazy to you that it was the cause of maybe some of your mental illness and drug abuse? I mean, did that?
What's great? What's crazy is the older you get, the more you look back and realize that that's not the crazy thing; it's the human reaction to it all.
Yeah,
and having to deal with the judgments of humans, of other humans, and realizing that you're more a part of something that is kind of not of this world. It's actually closer to the earth than we know, but it's not a part of the world that we know that humans have created. So for me, that's kind of, as I'm getting older, that at first, you see it from that point of view that you were saying that, it was causing the problem or whatever. But I mean, as I'm getting older, I see a point to it all, and I see less of a point to the criticism and questioning of humans, the paranormal, as far as I guess when the questions are rhetorical. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
People just want to come in and they make their judgments, and they already have the answers before they ask the question. They have the answers they want, and they're stuck with those answers for the rest of their lives if they choose to be, I guess, until they have their own experience. But for me, I mean, it's just been it's so normal. I live in a haunted house now, and the experiences I was having as a child, that might have contributed to night terrors, or I'm now like seeing the same thing and just saying good night, love you, good night.
Oh boy, did you choose did you choose the house, or is the fact that you're so open? Both. Okay.
Yeah. When I came here, a good friend told me about it, and I caught it right when it opened up. And what's great is my rent is really cheap, and I've been renting the same house for 14 years, so they haven't really gone up on my rent for much. But it's especially in this area. But one of my friends heard about it, and she called and told me about it, and I caught it, on a whim. And I came here, and when I came here, I felt stuff touching me on my face. And I can't. The only way I can explain that is when I get touched on the left side of my face, I usually describe that as being feminine or female related. So that's just, that was, to me, was a sign like this is the place you need to be. Plus it had a creek, and I later would find out that there's probably an native burial mound back here. And there's spirits, and there's not just spirits here. There's elementals. I've had what I believe was a little person run across my floor. And when I say little person, I don't mean a human. but it was kind of like a toddler ran across my floor at 4:00 in the morning, and I had an ex-girlfriend here, and she actually heard it too, and she'll say to this day, whatever it was on 2 feet, you know.
Did she become
anyway,
an ex-girlfriend because of the thing running across the floor at 4:00 in the morning?
No. That's a whole other. I could write a book. I could write a book on my physical life alone and leave out all the paranormal stuff.
Okay.
But she and I are actually still kind of off and on friends, as much as we can get along. But she will say to this day, yes, that actually she used to say I was full of crap. When I tell her the house is haunted, she say, "Oh, you're full of crap. You're full of crap." She's one of those people. You know, and then when that happened, she was like, you know, okay. And to this day, if I tell that story and she's around, she'll say, yeah, that actually happened. So, I was there. But anyways, I've had random events like that all my life, and then leading up into this home, and then having several initiation periods since around age 20, where I actually had basically what were several pagan goddesses appear to me. And then I've had some other deities that were male, and I had what I thought was a demon appear to me for almost I think it was like 10 days, and it looked a lot like what the German the Krampus.
Oh boy!
Krampus.
Oh man!
Yes.
Yeah, and when I say appear to me, these are things I see in my mind's eye, but they come with a presence, and the vision keeps representing itself. So it's not a part of imagination. It's really hard to explain when you're a medium, because I'm basically a physical medium, you know, and I get images from spirit. I've been talking to spirits all my life, and I've actually given readings for people and stuff like that. But it's just not something that I want to revolve my life around to the point that that's how I'm making my money and so on. You know, I really want a normal life too. I want both, but I want a balanced, you know, life. But anyways, the further I go into the story, I'm going to tell you that's pretty much all I've ended at this point. But so I feel the need to tell you all these things because it just seems like it's been a build up to some of the experiences I'm having now, which I want to go ahead and move into. My first Sasquatch encounter, although I can't say for sure it was a Sasquatch encounter, was that I was at a certain place on a pull off at the scenic highway, and anyway, I was there for other reasons. I was there because UFOs are known to present themselves there. And I'd actually seen several lights, and I'd been hanging out there for actually 2 or 3 years. And prior to this, I'd gone through a breakup, and it was the relationship that I thought was going to be the one and everything. And I mean, after 3 years later, I was just completely aloof, you know, just not really knowing what to do with my life, you know, not suicidally depressed or anything, just not knowing where to go. And so I would go out to this place, and I would watch for these UFOs or these ghost lights or whatever. There was all kind of, you know, activity there. And several people told me there was a Bigfoot there. Like, you would meet random people there. Not anybody I knew. I'd just meet them there, and they'd be a new person in my life, you know. But some of the people I met there said, well, you know, there's Sasquatches around here, and they tell me stories. And I just kind of, you know, blew it off and said, well, I guess until they present themselves to me, I don't know. I'm this kind of person stays 50-50 because obviously I know what I've been through, so I can't just blow off people's experiences completely. And then over the years, I know 2 or 3 different times I'd be sitting talking to people in the parking lot, and we have little rocks thrown at us. Nothing big, just little ones, like something trying to get our attention. And I remember stopping a guy mid-conversation one time and saying, do you realize that a rock just got thrown at us? And he said, yeah. And then he got up and started looking around, you know, like, where did it come from? And together we did this, you know. And then another guy, I was sitting there talking. I let him go on for probably about 10 minutes before I said, you do realize that we just had something thrown at us, right? And he's like, yeah, I thought we did too, but I wasn't going to say anything. So little experiences. Now, the bigger experiences that were before I had my actual major experience, before I knew what I was dealing with, I would hear trees either falling or pushed over in dead calm. And over the first 2-3 years that I hung out in this area, I heard about 7 trees pushed over. And they would happen at the strangest times, like when a car pulled into the parking lot or something like that. And one time I heard what sounded like a boulder come crashing down the mountain. And I never saw these trees or anything, but they were so loud that they would echo the entire valley, and my adrenaline would be pumping for a good 30 minutes. And I just knew that something was being a horticulturist, being someone who has a college education for horticulture and understanding the physics of trees and why they fall as far as diseases and pest infestation and so on goes, or environment, whatever. I was stunned. I was like, I don't get this. I don't see how, 7 rotting trees just happen to fall when there's no wind and be that huge and that loud all at the same time. It didn't make any sense. I mean, these trees literally exploded, So anyway, I remember one day I was up there, and one evening, and some bear hunters drove by. You're not allowed to hunt in this area, but you're allowed to run your dogs. And bear hunters are allowed to run their dogs there. And they drove by. They drove by in a truck, and they drove by in a gator, and they were playing the radio in the gator, so you can kind of hear it blare. And it's kind of, for people that don't know any better, that's just kind of like an ATV with a roof over it. And they drove on by, and I thought I was hearing their radio still playing, but I realized I was hearing 2 people or 2 somethings talking. And the truth is, it didn't sound human, and it wasn't a human language at all. And it just kept talking, and it went on. I don't know how long it went on before I finally said something. Oh, I remember I froze for 3 seconds. I was so scared, and I don't get scared. I mean, I've already seen so much, I've dealt with demonic stuff. I'm used to this kind of stuff, but this was shocking. This was new to me. It's like, where is this coming from? What's happening? And so I froze for 3 seconds, and then I actually got the nerve to speak up, and I said, keep talking, I'm listening. And then it stopped. And I think I heard it go on for a total of 20 seconds is what it was. Because I remember counting. I said, what is this? And I try to be hypervigilant and, do little things like that. But that was a singular incident. And there was another night there that I was just standing there at the same place where the UFOs are, and then a loud branch snapped near me. And I turned around, and a branch that had been 35 feet up in the air that was, green as all get up, just snapped, and then I'm down. And to this day, I don't know exactly what caused that. But anyway, moving on. August 2nd, 2020, I go to this same place. It's the night before a full moon, and I got a little bored and thought I might do a tree knock and have a piece of wood I keep with me just for fun. And I did hit a tree a couple of times, and I think I might have done one whoop or something like that. And I've done this before, and I just usually don't expect anything because nothing ever happens. And so no matter where I've done it, I've done it. I've never had a Bigfoot encounter before this date that I was aware of, for sure. And something started going crazy on the embankment behind me within 20 minutes of me being there. And it went so crazy. I mean, it was breaking branches, snapping everything. I was scared to death. I was shaking. I finally turned my car around. Instead of watching for UFOs, I'm now watching the embankment behind the parking lot where I'm at. I'm turned around completely. I'm standing in my driver's side door. I've got my keys in my right hand. I've got a huge, police mag light, flashlight in my left hand. And I'm hollering and yelling, and usually when I yell, if I hear a big animal, it makes it go away. I'm a singer, so I can project my voice, man. And I was hollering and yelling and screaming. This thing just kept getting louder and louder and louder. It never came out of the trees. I never saw it. It just kept getting louder and louder and louder. And I'm about ready to leave. And I go to I go to the well, and I'm like, well, what can I do here to not have to leave this place? Because I'm very stubborn. So I'm probably more stubborn than a Sasquatch.
That's probably being stubborn. Probably is the worst quality to have when you're going cryptid hunting. I'm just going to throw it out.
Well, it can be, but this night it wasn't. Yeah. And I started singing first, and I sang 3 songs. And it stopped going crazy, and it got calm while I was singing. And as soon as I stopped singing, it started up again. And this went on. Let me be clear. This thing went crazy, like was going wild for 45 minutes. So basically, it was bluff charging me for 45 minutes. Okay, and it's snapping branches. It's doing things that other animals don't do. And it's big and it's loud. I mean, it's 300 pounds or bigger. I'm 100 yards from it, so I don't know exactly. And it's in the trees, and it's late August. So there's plenty of foliage on the trees and so on. And but anyway, I sang to it, and then it calmed down for the 3 songs I was singing. And then once I stopped, it started up again. And then I literally yelled at it. I said, "Hey, I'm not your enemy." I said, "If anything, I'm your friend. I don't have any weapons." I said, "I love this place. Please don't run me off from my favorite place." I literally said those words. And it got quiet for about 2 to 3 minutes. and then I heard 2 tree knocks. And I mean, they were just as clear as day. I've gone on to realize that tree knocks could be vocal clicks or palm slaps to a tree. So it may not be that a Sasquatch is actually picking up a limb and hitting the tree, although sometimes I believe that's what it is. But I believe it varies, you know?
Yeah.
But I heard 2 tree knocks, and even after that, I was able to turn my car back around, and I stayed there that night until I was ready to leave, and I didn't have any more problems.
So what do you think? Do you think it?
Let me tell you this.
Okay.
Let me tell you this, because I need to add this to the story before I forget it.
Okay.
I decided at that point that I pretty much knew what it was, but I was going to go with, I don't know what it was. I called someone from the nearby Park Service, a wildlife specialist, and they had to take my number, and he called me back. And I told him exactly what happened. I talked to him very cleanly, not overexcitedly, just like I'm telling you right now. And I said, I don't know what it was. I didn't see it. And we went down the list of all known animals in this area, from bear to boar to possibly even panther, although they won't admit they're around here. I said, could it have been an elk that, went crazy or something? He's like, no. He's like, there's no animal that would bluff charge you for more than maybe 5 to 10 minutes without actually coming after you or going away and losing interest in going away. And then I said, and then he said, well, I said, okay. Well, he said, well, I've gotten panther reports before, but I've never gotten a Bigfoot report before. And that's when I got him. And I said, I never said Bigfoot. You did. And he got quiet after that.
So do you think he was lying about that?
No, he didn't act like it at all. This is a wildlife specialist.
But I mean, the fact that he's saying, even bringing that up, it's almost an admission that he realizes
not the way
they're out
there.
there.
He would listen to me like I was, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He listened to me like I was being honest. But I don't think from what I could tell, I don't think he realizes that they're out there the way that I realize they're out there.
Well, what I wanted to ask is, so you were allowed to stay, okay?
Yeah.
Do you believe? Okay.
I've been going back. I got recordings. I've been talking to him.
Well, so what I'm asking is, do you think they understood what you said, or the manner in which you said it, or do you think there's?
Well, that's what I'm getting. I'm to the point of telepathic communication with them. That was family number 1. I'm way past that now. And when I say these things, I'm going to have to say that this is mostly theory.
Okay.
But the results I'm getting from my relationships with these creatures is extremely profound. And yes, this what seems to be telepathic communication, same thing I would do with a spirit if I was communicating with a spirit or listening to a spirit. They work in images. So when you send a Sasquatch an image in your mind, he can pick up on that. So if you send him peaceful, like if you're going into a new area and you send him peaceful, loving messages, and I do a lot of other things. I'll sing to him. I'll play instruments for him. I'll give him apples and treats where it's legal for me to do that, because it's not legal to feed wildlife on federal land,
Right.
Things like that. But just where I can, I do what I can where I can for them, and then I have to work with the environment, of course, because sometimes they're much further away from me than I'd like for them to be when I'm communicating with them. It's really hard to pick them up even on recorder. But yes, you can communicate with these creatures. You can do it on a physical level. You can do it with knocks and whoops. And if you notice, and what I've noticed too, is that that's their biggest form of communication. When they're up close to each other, they talk to each other just like humans do. And mostly if there's humans around, they're going to talk in a loud whisper. If they're in a place where they think humans could be around, most of the time they talk in a very loud whisper. It sounds like, I told you earlier, it sounds like 2 Tasmanian devils talking, like a male and a female. If there's a baby around, you'll hear like that, and there's something similar to that. And I call that chimp chatter because it sounds closest to a chimpanzee. And then, of course, you hear whoop, whoop. Now, what's interesting is I've heard recordings from other places of whoops that are like whoop or something like that, that actually sound like full-on chimpanzee or some other kind of call. And when I hear them, I just hear short, quick whoop, whoop. And I used to go out in the woods and I'd do those long whoops and they never respond to me. Now that I learned to do the shorter whoops from them, Actually, they're the ones who taught me. And when they started showing me how to do that, then I've started going out and doing that, and then I start getting more responses, at least around here. So they may have different ways of speaking to each other in different regions. And I've even wondered that if a male comes from another region, he might have a different language than the female, the mate that he ends up picking up. And they may just work that out later, because some of these couples talk more, some of these families talk more than the others. And I wonder if they're trying to learn each other's language, or communicate certain things to each other. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, now that's an interesting theory right there.
But and that's what I'm doing. Oh, by the way, I'm taking primatology and conservation under one of the world's leading primatologists. So I am, factoring all of the actual science into this as much as possible. And really, when I study Bigfoot, when something happens, there's a couple of things I've learned from studying like primates, non-human primates. I noticed that the Sasquatches, a lot of times when it rains, they would get really still. And so I looked up, do gorillas like water? And then, of course, Google popped up and said, no, gorillas they're not natural swimmers, and when it rains, they tend to sit still until it stops showering. And now what I've noticed with the Sasquatches is if it rains for, a couple of days or whatever, they'll start getting active because they're just getting annoyed. You can just feel it, because they're wet all the time. But also, though, I have noticed I was actually out at that first place I was telling you about where the UFOs are, and I was out with a crowd of friends, and we were all standing in the parking lot, semicircle, talking, and it was a light rain. There wasn't enough to run us off, but all the Sasquatches were quiet. And there was two girls that were younger in their 20s, and they were giggling and giggling and giggling. And all of a sudden, we just have this little rock come flying and land right in the middle of all of us. Every single one of us saw it and heard it at the same time. We knew it was there, and we knew it was for them because they were being loud and annoying. But that was just the Sasquatch's behavior at that time was just to say, hey, it's raining, we're quiet, we want you to be a little quieter, or maybe they were just messing with us. You can't, I do have to say this is really, really dealing with theory here, and I have to admit that 100%. I can't know things for sure. All I can know is trial and error. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There's not a definitive line of them. They know English and they're talking back and forth to me in English. That's just not happening. So I try to when I've seen that there are Sasquatches around farms or something like that, if I end up in communication with them, then I try to let them know not to hurt any human animals, and they'll be fine. They won't have any issues with the humans. And that seems to work. And what I do is I imagine, what they do. Sasquatches put X's out for boundaries, which is another thing I need to get into. But I imagine an X over all human-related animals, such as pets and livestock and so on. And I'll send that picture to them. And then I'll send a picture of, but all wild game is yours, And then and they seem to go with that. Maybe they already had that down pat before I came along. I don't want to take credit for it, So maybe they had that understanding before they came along. But I have heard stories, of people that fed Sasquatches, and then the Sasquatches, like the people go out of town, the Sasquatches ate the whole farm or something.
I've heard those stories too. Yeah, for sure.
But all those stories that I'm hearing are not true for me personally. They're not happening in my experiences, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying they didn't happen. I'm not saying they're not true at all. I believe they're possible. But I believe a lot of it has to do with how you treat a non-human primate. And one thing I don't do is I do not feed them meat, because I don't believe in them relating me to meat. But if I feed them fruits and vegetables, that's different. They don't see that, so hard as a necessity, I don't think. And another thing is humans have pretty much been tricked into believing that we need as much meat as we do. And I'm not a spokesperson for PETA. I eat meat. So just to be clear, I want to separate myself from that. But, we really don't need that much meat. I want to say it's in Vietnam. There is a group of people that live in Vietnam that only eat meat twice a week or something like that. And they're have some of the longest lifespans in the world for humans.
You just totally lost Jason. He eats a hamburger 3 times a day.
Hey, I had 2 hamburger patties earlier today. I skipped the bread, but But no, I eat meat. No, it's not about that. But what I'm trying to get to is that when you study primates, you realize they don't eat a lot of meat. Non-human primates don't eat a lot of meat. So a gorilla that's 400 pounds, and is all muscle and could rip you in half, doesn't really eat much meat at all. They eat mostly grubs and foliage and roots and things like that, and bark.
Which is amazing to think that you could build muscle mass like that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's in their genetics.
Yeah.
It's in their genetics. It's all it is. It's in their genes. And that's why no matter how many steroids we use, we'll never be as powerful as they are. We just don't have the genes.
So I want to ask you about, so you've said how many different families do you think you have identified since late last year then?
Yeah, I know of six. And I think they're all related. Yeah.
Now what distinguishes a family unit to you that you are able to say, okay,
a group of them, at least separated by at least, 10 to 30 miles.
Okay.
So if they're in groups separated by at least 10 to 30 miles, then that's what I would consider a family unit, pretty much. So, and what happens is you might have one family that has a lot of let me say this, a lot of sperm that produces females. Mm-hmm. So if you have that in one area, that might attract a lot of transient males to the area.
Tell me about it. I have 3 daughters. Okay.
There you go.
There you go. Okay. I totally empathize with the big.
The only difference is when these daughters reach a certain age, I believe the father and the mother kick them out. They're like, you got to go, because then it becomes a competition for resources.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. It makes sense. Totally.
So they tell them, but I think that the males and the females, as much as possible, will stay close to the mother and father to some degree, even if within 100 miles. I also roughly believe each family have roughly a 25-mile square area. That's my guess. And I validate these. I'll go somewhere. I'll either get a gut feeling. I'll be told to go check out a place. 9 times out of 10, it's a gut feeling, or I just happen to go somewhere and get out and pee, and they'll do a tree knock. That literally happens to me. On one of the audio recordings I have uploaded to YouTube, I pulled over to a place because I couldn't get to the first family. And this is back after I'd only known the first, I'd only just met the first family. And they shut that part of the highway down during the winter because it's just too treacherous. So I went to another part, and I literally was bored, pulled over, going through Sasquatch withdrawal, and pulled out my recorder and started trying to get spirit voices, because I tend to get a lot of those too sometimes. I actually got one that night where I was at. And the crazy thing is, on the recorder at 1:53, I hear something moving around me, and I just heard something moving. But right before I say that, you hear a voice on the recorder, and it sounds like, ooh. It's like a Sasquatch ghost. It's the only way I can explain it.
Oh, man.
And then at 9 minutes, it was 8:56 or something on the recorder. You hear me sitting there talking to spirit, trying to get voices, because I'm seeing orbs and I'm kind of feeling things, and I'm standing behind this great big old rock. And all of a sudden, I get the loudest power knock I ever got on recorder. And even on the recording, the whole recording's 33 minutes long. I ended up getting 8 more knocks. I only validated 3 of them then and there. And each time, and even when I left, I said, I don't believe it. This is impossible. There's no way. I mean, you hear me doubting it through the whole recording. I'm still trying to talk to spirits after I hear that loudest knock. But then I go home and listen. People, this is why you keep recorders with you. Okay? Audio recorders. Not just video. Keep audio recorders, because it gets every little detail that those video recorders don't get as far as sound goes. A good audio recorder, like a Tascam, if you're a musician, or you're into sound, radio, whatever, and you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we have Zoom 4 channels.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, well, I might be interested in hearing what you guys are using. But I just bought the little $100 Tascams, throw the SD card in, and I've got like 5 or 6 of them. I take one of those out with me, and and just I get stuff all the time. But anyways, yeah, I got that knock, and that was within 9 minutes of me being there, the first time I'd ever stopped there in my life. And then there was another place that I stopped, and I'd been to another spot that I went to on a gut instinct, and I found them there. I went there, started making noises, doing my thing, and they started clacking rocks. But they were so far up, and it was like 5,000 feet elevation, and it was so windy and so cold, I was like, screw this. So I came back down the mountain. I pulled over to pee near at the bottom of the mountain, and before my foot hit the ground, my car's still running, lights are still on, I hear whack. And I literally said to myself, you have to be kidding me. And that was family number 3. And that's just, so the first 3 families let me know they were there. The 4th family let me know it was there. And families number 5 and 6, they let me know they were there after I told them I already knew they were there. After I went there and basically said, I can feel you, right? Even if you're not talking to me, right? Because I can feel them. That's the other thing, is I can feel them watching me, especially when they don't know me yet. I can feel them like all the hair up on me stand up all over my body. And there's nothing else in the world that makes me feel that way, except a ghost kind of, but not like a Sasquatch. I've even had the Sasquatch set off an EMF detector before. It made it go to yellow twice in a row.
That's very interesting. That is very interesting.
And I was,
for sure. Yeah.
And I was literally within 20, 30 yards of it, so I was still a good ways from it. But I don't, unless it was a ghost that did that, but that's the only time that my EMF detector has ever gone off, even in my haunted house. So I find that very odd, to say the least.
Now, do you think that they, so this is going to take us down this little pathway here on what you think these things really are, because there is definitely then with you a very spiritual side to these things. To where they're just not just flesh and blood. I mean, even though us, everybody that's flesh and blood, if you believe a certain way, you believe that we're all very spiritual. But these seem to be spiritual to the 100th degree. You know what I'm saying?
They. I'll just put it this way: they actually came near my home.
So they came like looking for you, essentially. Yeah. I deal with them nightly. Since we're not giving out full locations, I deal with them nightly. Now, do you? And that's because you are basically an open, lack of a better term, portal to their.
I guess so. I mean, I'm a pagan Christian Methodist preacher's son. So I'm just all over the place kind of when it comes to that stuff. It seems like you're all over the place. The truth is I'm very focused about my spirituality. But I pray every day. I'm a Reiki level 3 healer. I'm not a Reiki master. I just want to be clear about that. I don't teach people Reiki or anything like that. But I do use Reiki. Are you familiar with Reiki? It's a Japanese mode of hands-on healing. Yeah. Yep. But I use it a lot when I'm going and talking to them. I use it on myself, to kind of cleanse my own energy, and then I go and I use it as a way of communication. I call on Archangel Gabriel. Gabriel, you might know him in the Bible. Mm-hmm. Gabriel has to do with translation and communication. So I call on him to work with me, when I'm talking with these creatures. And I don't know what gets through, and I can't explain the relationship. It's something you have to experience, and if I talk to someone and they just use their logic to try to understand it, they're going to dismiss it. This comes from a place of love. It really does. I'm going into what you're saying about spirituality. They have taught me so much about themselves, and they've taught me more about humans than they've taught me about themselves. We are the most arrogant species on the planet, and I'm not trying to put down humans, but we really are. We think we know everything. We don't know anything.
Yeah, I don't think that's a surprise. I don't think you just surprised anybody unless they're too arrogant to realize that, we don't know everything. I mean, I would hope most people have at least a little bit of humility to them, But yes, it's obvious. It's obvious quite a few don't. But
I'm already to the point of telepathically, best I can, explaining war to them, explaining how power works, how fuel works. Like I was telling them, okay, you guys, if you're going to be around here, don't mess with the power lines. Those are dangerous. Those could kill both of us, and then I explain, and then he'd say, well, why? And then I explain to him best I can, well, we use coal to power these power lines, but we have to cut down your trees to run these power lines through them, you know. And I was just explaining how it was all cyclical, you know, and just everything that humans do for power and fuel comes at the expense of nature. And I'm not at all trying to be political or anything like that. It's just a reality we live in. And when you're sitting there explaining this to them, or when I'm explaining this to them, it's opening my eyes more to that fact. It's like, whoa, everything I'm doing is having impact on their environment, you know, and maybe they came closer to me to help me see that. Because now I'm far much more aware, you know, of how, and I can't be perfect. None of us can be. And we're all going to make mistakes. But anyways, I think it's important as we go on in life to to keep the environment and conservation in mind, and not from a political stance, but from an honest stance of just like, you know, I don't want to poison the area that these creatures live in. Best I can help, you know, best I can do that. And it's in the same thing. I don't want to give them I'm not going to give them bananas and peanut butter on the same night because I don't want them to choke to death. You know, it's all out of love. You know, it's that simple. But anyway, but yeah, this is kind of my story. I just found a new family last night. It was family number 6. I was told by a couple of people to stop there and check it out, and I literally pulled off just off the road, went down a little ways down a hiking trail. This is in complete darkness. I don't use a flashlight unless I have to, and that's rare. And I turned on my recorder, and I have it's called a thumb harp, I believe. There's another name for it, but I don't know what it is. But it's basically just this little, kind of like it works like a tuning fork, but you just kind of play it with your thumb, and it has different notes on it. And I started playing it, and then I sang a little song for them, and then I started talking to them, and I started getting whoops and knocks, and I could hear them talking to each other. And immediately I knew, I was like, this family, it was kind of near a campground. I was thinking, this family must be already familiar with humans, you know, if they're being that open to me. But, you know, that was last night's experience. I'd gone to visit the first family, which is right down the road. And there were too many people there for me to talk to them. That becomes a complication. So if there's people there, I'll click my tongue. When I got there, and I have it on recorder, I got out of the car. Within a minute, they threw something that hit the pavement.
Oh, wow.
This was a regular thing last year, and then we were locked out of there for 5 months because of the being a friend. We were locked out of there for 5 months because of the winter road closures, and then it's like having to rebuild that relationship again. And I'm having to start with the dominant male again. It was the juvenile that I was always having fun with. I would laugh and joke with him, and he'd throw things at me. And none of it was aggressive. It was just fun, you know. You could tell it was fun. Because if they want you to leave, or if they don't want to talk to you, they'll either run you off or they won't talk to you, period. You get what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So their actions, a lot of learning their communication is in their actions alone, by what they do or by what they don't do. You know, so if you go in an area and you can hear them a little bit, and they're not running you off, and you can hear them enough to where you're convinced they can hear you, then they probably don't have a problem with you. You know, but people that want to. I was just going to say, it's just these people that want to run straight out into the woods with a camera and get as close to them as possible and get all up in their territory in their face without asking permission or announcing themselves. There's lots of keys to this, and you can really find it in regular human to non-human primate communication. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Jane Goodall and Diane Fossey used to have to announce themselves when they came and went from the forest. You know, and I have to do the same thing. And if I don't, a lot of times they'll whoop at me. So if I go out in my backyard at night, I have to whoop.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Click my tongue or something, you know.
Now, have you? So they're putting thoughts and images and pictures into your head, then, as their way of.
I have a story about that.
Okay.
Real quick. Hold on to what you got there. This is a quick story. I was actually sitting on the porch one night, and I was talking to the dominant male that's near my home, and I said, I was going to walk up into the area and take a recorder because I really wanted to get his chatter up close. Problem is, they have a natural instinct to run away from you when you get up close to them, even if they like you. You know, it's just they can't override that natural instinct to distrust and get away from humans, you know. But anyway, I was real nervous about it. I was scared, you know. I didn't know exactly what would happen. And I was kind of explaining that to him in my mind. And I felt him say to me, this is one of the times they got me. I felt him say to me, he said, when I came to live here, before I came to live here near you, I did not think it was a good idea at all, but something in my gut told me to. And he said, I trusted that in my gut. And he said, the same trust that I came here with to live near you is the same kind of trust you're going to have to use to walk up in the woods near me.
Ooh.
And when that, yeah, that was like and that's the way spirits work with me. When they're teaching me lessons, that's how they talk to you. Then you get a revelation. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that epiphany, and you're just like, oh shit, this is real. That he's talking to me, you know, and so I've gone with it like that ever since. And I've had another family, you know, I'm big on working towards getting them classified and protected at some point. I kind of got to get their permission to do it. I had another family telepathically communicate to me. I was telling him this, and he said, you know, we really don't need your help, is what he said. But he wasn't being a dick. He was just saying, we really don't need your help. And then another night I was there, I was real nervous because I was scared of other wild animals. And because I'm always exposing myself to these dangers out there. My friends literally think I am insane to do this. And I felt the male up there say to me at that same place, said to me, we want you to feel safe here. And when he said that, I was like, wow. And I actually took a friend up there the other night, and they were very open and friendly and even let their baby come down and talk to my friend. And we had stuff thrown at us. We were hearing the chimp chatter. And then there was a fourth one that I didn't know about until the other night when I took my friend there. And he sat up on the ridge and watched us with the chimp because we could hear the mother and father way up the ridge behind the other two. And this one, the fourth one, I asked about 15 questions in a row, and I asked some crazy questions. I said, do you know what angels are? Do you know what the Kabbalah is? Weird stuff. And I don't, know that they really know what I'm saying, but either way, the thing responded to me. I think we counted 11 out of 15 times, and it was with these low thuds that I kept looking at my friend saying, dude, are your feet hitting the pavement? Are you stomping on the pavement every time I ask a question? He's like, no, man, I'm standing still. And I watched him, and he was. And he asked me once if I was doing that. But it was very strange. But I got all that on recorder, too. So it was that was a very unique experience. I don't know exactly what was going on there, but I can tell you this much. Even if you don't understand what the other is saying, if you're talking back and forth, it's still communication. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And there's no other animal in the world that's going to do that with you besides a primate like that, unless it's trained somehow or something like that. I'm sure you can get a dog to work back and forth with you, but there's no other animal that has those specific sound traits as far as Knox whoops, clicking, or I think those are the main things: Knox whoops and clicking, or the chatter, the talking, Those are synonymous with these creatures, and they're also synonymous. I don't know about so much the talking, but the knocks, the whoops, and the chatter are definitely synonymous with chimpanzees, somewhat to gorillas, and somewhat to orangutans. And then of course it extends out to other monkeys as well. I'm just trying to keep it in the great ape range as much as possible, but I think they have characteristics of all the great apes. I don't think they are just this one, and it could be. Some people that get DNA come back with chimp DNA. What was that show, Expedition Bigfoot, recently found chimp DNA in West Virginia or Kentucky or somewhere?
I believe it. Yeah, Kentucky is where they were.
Yeah. So they did that, and other places have come back with some kind of gorilla DNA or something like that. So I think we're dealing with several different species of Sasquatches, and also think there may be some that are combinations. I mean, if they're interbreeding, which is highly likely.
Well, have you been able to like ask them? I mean, or is that something you haven't broached that subject of?
And it's hard to get a clear. Like I asked them how they disappear.
Okay.
My friend kept saying, "You need to ask him how they disappear," and the answer that he gave me is something that I can't really understand. I mean, I can tell you what he said, and it's not something he said. It was an image he sent to me, but it was basically just that their bodies, their cellular structure is made up of matter that is not like ours. So they can come and go somehow. And I don't really know how to put that into words. I don't understand physics. I bet if I understood physics, then I would have some better understanding, to put into words what he's saying or what he said to me. But basically what he said to me is what we already know. It's just,
So
it just,
are they
he's not
actually
gonna know how to explain
leaving?
it.
When they leave, you get the impression they're actually leaving, or are they able to just cloak themselves really well?
I believe they can do both. I believe they have portals they can travel.
Okay.
I believe there's because I've had a portal in the back of my property for I don't know how long, and I don't know how else they got here. I mean, I've been trying to figure it out, and it doesn't make sense to me. Because the places where the other families are is the closest one's 25 miles away.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't get it. But
now, do they actually? I mean, have they actually shown themselves to you, or does it?
I've only seen a silhouette of one at the family number 1, and that was last year. And I was getting ready to leave, and I turned my lights on, and I was pulling out of the pull-off area, and I saw and it was one of those situations where I actually saw it, and then I kept going, and I stopped, and I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
It was a black, it was just, all I saw was a silhouette, and it had bluish white eye shine. It was standing next to a tree on the edge of the forest, and it was just where the ridge starts going down, and it was about 7 foot tall, and it looked humanoid. It had that humanoid shape to it. It looked like a tall, scraggly, kind of skinny Sasquatch. And it was in an area where we figured there might be a female, like a juvenile female, or, one that's getting ready to leave the nest anyway. But again, that's theory. But I did see the silhouette. I did see the bluish white eye shine, which I actually at this point think might have just been my LED car lights reflecting in its eyes. And I felt like it was standing there for me to see it. But as soon as I stopped and looked back, of course it was gone. But that's all I've seen, and I will absolutely confess that. But I've got recordings of audio, inexplicable audio from every night of my life since August 2nd, pretty much. So, and I've had it analyzed, with other researchers in other parts of the state. If I'm working with a guy that worked with a guy that was on Finding Bigfoot, and, on the show, not one that works with the show regularly, but who was featured on the show, whose story was featured on the show in one of the episodes, but I don't want to say which one. But, anyways, he's a sound guy, and this guy also is a musician that plays at the Grand Ole Opry sometimes, so he's a really good sound guy.
Oh, really?
But, in his spare time, he likes to go squatching. But he'll do the sound audio for me, which is basically he'll just run the audio against a screen that pulls up all the frequencies. And you can use this kind of digital analysis to decide if something is valid or not, or to tell if something's human or whatnot, and people don't give enough validity to sound digital analysis. It's everybody wants to go to video, and it's getting to where you can fake a video better than you can fake audio.
Yeah, it seems to me with some of the people I've seen analyze audio, it would be almost impossible to fake audio.
Exactly. It would, and that's what I'm saying. So I'm trying to get primatologists to look at that, but all I'm like, I want a picture. Everybody's instant gratification these days. And I'm going to tell you right now, I do not use cameras. I say I don't. I use cameras to go back and take pictures of tree structures during the day to validate the families. And then, in being a horticulturist, I can look at a tree and tell why it fell. But I do use one trail cam. I set it up in one particular area on my property, and I let the male know every night what I'm doing, and I set it up in the same place, aim the same direction, and so that he has the option to come and have his picture taken if he wants to. And I know that sounds crazy. You're like, oh, well, he's never going to do it now. I'm like, well, I've gotten this far with him, so,
So I wonder because, okay, so if they can, there's, just for lack of a better term, a telepathic connection, okay? And so they have the ability to read people's thoughts and stuff. And maybe they can read people's thoughts that the people aren't aware that they're having their thoughts read.
Intentions, yeah.
Yeah. And maybe that's why you can't catch any of these creatures on a trail cam, because even though
that's a great point,
somebody's out there setting up a trail cam thinking and the Bigfoot's in the background going, I know what you're up to. And it's not going to work. It's not going to work. I've been in the backyard and pulled out my cell phone to answer a text or something, and they throw little sticks at me. That's happened 4 times. And that's just normal. And it's at other places I go. You pull out a screen, sometimes they'll start throwing stuff at you, little stuff. It's all communication. Put that away. It's just it's wonder how they understand what all that stuff is and what it stands for and what it means, which makes you think that they do come from maybe a place or a plane that's that they are a higher intelligence and have an understanding.
Well, let's look at it this way. What if the only difference, what if the main difference between us and known primates, known non-human primates, is not as much genetics? The difference in our behavior is not as much genetics but environment.
Yeah.
How much more would we be alike if we were raised the same? Because you have to show, when they rehabilitate orangutans that have been taken from the pet trade, when they rehabilitate the baby orangutans to get back into the wild because their mothers have been killed, they have to show them how to do everything. They have to show them how to hunt for termites. They have to show them all the things, how to get coconuts and bust them open. They have to show them all these things that their mother would have taught them.
Right.
So they learn by showing, and we're the same way. We're the same way. I mean, we share 50% DNA with a banana. So a small difference in DNA is just all it amounts to is a bigger difference in strength and physical features, but not so much behavior.
So you're definitely of the camp then that you believe these creatures are from the primate family and or somewhere between primates and humans, or
Well, there's too many paranormal factors here. First of all, nearly every place they end up is haunted, and a lot of places have UFO activity. So there's other stuff going on. But what I try to do is I try to approach it from a human scientific point of view and from a paranormal point of view, but try to keep the two a little bit separate. Not giving more credit to one or the other. But just trying to stay grounded so that when it comes time to try to get these creatures classified, that I'll still have some credit left. Which I don't know if I will after this interview, but
No. I mean, this is fascinating. I love the fact of how you acknowledge all the different ways that they communicate with us, whether we realize it or not. They're communicating with us. It's like.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the fact that like how they throw things to get our attention or things like that. Because think about it, they're not just trying to be aggressive and throw things like how, say, humans do. They are communicating with you because these things are powerful. If they wanted to be aggressive and hit us with something, they could take something 45, 50 pounds and with dead accuracy hit it right in the head, chuck it, and we're done. So they're obviously not trying to do that. It's just another form of communication.
Yeah, they're saying, I like these humans and I don't like these humans.
Right, exactly. Or I like this behavior or I don't like this behavior.
Exactly.
Please stop
yes,
it.
yes. And a lot of time what they do is they match their intensity with what you've done. So if I do something that's small and offensive to them, like pulling out my cell phone, they'll throw a little stick at me. One night I was hearing a bunch of noises around me when I was still getting used to them at the first family, and I turned on my big bright mag light flashlight and shined it up in the woods, and I heard a loud tree knock. Like, cut that out.
Exactly.
And I did.
That wasn't appreciated.
And I didn't hear anything else.
Right.
Yeah, and once I cut it out, I didn't hear anything like that anymore. It got quieter.
Yeah, now that is that right there is communication in its basic form right there.
Exactly. I mean, and the announcements are too. I mean, when they, like last night when I showed up and I got out of the car and then they threw something. That's them saying, hey, we're here. It's your turn. So I couldn't do much because the people there. So I click my tongue a lot at them. I go,
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
And I'll whoop, and I'll click my tongue and whoop. If there's cars coming and I want to warn them, I'll say, boop. And now they may see the car before I do, but I do it anyways. I want to show that I'm a part of their troop, even if from a distance.
Exactly.
I want to show them they can trust me.
Exactly.
You know,
that's like a respectful gesture.
Exactly, and for me, all of this is about building relationships with these creatures. If the end purpose of this is just me being happy on a hill with a Sasquatch family near me and talking to them every night, which I absolutely love, that's okay with me. If we can get them classified, that's what I'm really going for. But I want the relationship though, and even if I don't get the classification, I want the bond.
Yeah.
You know, if whatever God or love or whatever wants in this situation is what I want. But I definitely want to have that bond, because I'm going to tell you right now, I think their bonds are for life. Once they make a bond with a human, I've heard stories, and it feels that way. And I'm finding more loyalty in these creatures than I am humans. Granted, humans have lives, and I'm not trying to put down humans compared to Sasquatches so much as far as that goes, but that's one thing I've noticed is I'm getting older. I have a lot of friends, but people are getting more involved in their own lives. I don't have a girlfriend. I don't have any kids. And these are kind of filling a void for me, I guess.
Right.
You know? I'm close to my family, but we're far away. They live several states away from me, or a few states away from me. So this bond is very important to me, and being a loner for the most part anyways, it's very important to me. I mean, that's how I found them, was going out into the woods alone.
I think it's odd that you say that you're a loner when it seems like you have been surrounded by spirits nonstop.
Yeah, I'm
since
not
you were
a
little kid.
I've always said those are closer to me than most humans, really.
Oh,
and that's just the way it is. And I'm constantly talking to them too. And if I told you I've had some spirits that were well known around me.
Yeah, I often wonder. I think you're just more susceptible. You're more, shall we say, open? Yeah, susceptible.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
you can understand. A lot of people, they're kind of closed down, and they may. They may be trying to be communicating with spirits or anything like that, but if they can't receive it, well, then they don't even know. Where you've developed, or you've always had this receptibility, so you notice a lot of things. I think that's great.
Yeah, insight. It's just intuitive insight. Really, is all it is in the long run. I think a lot of people have it. They're just not, like you said, they're just not in tune with it.
Right.
And part of getting in tune with it is just going back out into the woods at night, turning your damn phone off, turning the TV off, and just being quiet for a while.
Yeah.
And you never know what'll show up near you, because you would, like, I don't know that like attracts like all the time. I think that's kind of a bum, new age comment, but there is some truth to that. And I think if you go out there and you put your good energy out there, you never know what'll come back to you from the woods.
Right.
For those that are interested, some other people are probably like, I'm not going out in the woods doing all that.
Yeah, exactly. I know how you feel. I'm not going out in the woods, and the first time these guys drag me out in the woods, I experienced something. So I think what you just said is total malarkey, because I didn't want to put that energy out there. I didn't want it to communicate.
Well, when you saw the red eyes that time, I was a little upset that I didn't get to see that. You should have called me over there.
Yeah, don't be.
I was in the woods with this guy the same night on a different party we had. Our group was large, so we had like 3 different small parties. And then he doesn't tell me about this till afterwards, where I know I was close to him. I was probably within 50 yards away. He could have got a hold of me somehow, so I could have experienced that too.
I saved you, trust me. So anyway, I wanted to. You touched on the UFO aspect of this, and where you're going, is a hot spot for seeing lights and stuff. So what is your experience out there with that, and how do you think it correlates?
I actually saw 2 lights in the sky above my house that I can't explain in the last 2 nights. And that's unusual. I don't usually see stuff out here. I've seen what I believe was a straight up drone one night, and then I believe I saw a military drone fly. I live in a cove, so it's surrounded by mountains, and there's farms out here and stuff. There's lots of woods too. But I saw what I believe was a military drone one night, because it was like black, and it flew very low, and I saw it from about 150 yards away. and it was about, it looked like it was 10 to 12 feet long, and it had red lights on it, on each corner of it. I've never seen anything like that in my life. Never. And they do military exercises over these mountains. So, you know, that's highly probable. Highly probable.
Yeah, that would have been a fascinating sighting right there.
Yeah, it was. I you know, it's something I don't think about a whole lot just because I kind of relate it to man, but I really don't know what it was. But I would, you know, if I had to throw it in a category, I'd say it was military. It had to be. But it just flew over, you know, my neighbor's farm and flew out. And then the night before last, I saw what looked like a star in the sky just light up brighter and then disappear. And that's not the first time I've seen something like that. It was the first time I've seen something like that here. And then last night, I saw what I thought was a shooting star. And then after I thought about it, I was like, damn, that thing was going way too fast to be a shooting star. And because I've seen several, you know, when you're out in the woods all night, you know satellites, you know planes, you know helicopters, you know that just because you see a light sitting still in the sky, that doesn't mean it's anything. It could be a plane that's coming towards you or flying away, because you've been out there long enough to know that, to know better. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But so you have to sit there and really watch it, you know. But yeah, this whatever I saw last night just darted. I mean, went so fast in the western sky, and it was gone. And I couldn't categorize it as a meteorite or a shooting star or anything. I don't know what it was. And you know, my life is so full of things that aren't supposed to even be, that I kind of just take it with a grain of salt nowadays, and, you know, take another puff off the cigarette. I don't, I mean, it's just like, okay. And I wouldn't be surprised if aliens showed up tomorrow and took over the world or something like that. Or if, you know, I played, the Sasquatches watch TV at my house. I put the TV on, and they'll go and sit from where they can see it. They're still like, you know, 75, 85 yards away. It's a big screen, so they can see it. And I played Planet of the Apes for him the other night. Before I started, I don't you go getting any ideas.
Yeah, right.
And I have to explain the difference between a movie and real, you know, but I think they know. I had a feeling he gets the idea. I don't know that the younger one does, you know. Kind of, he probably has to explain it to you, but I told him to explain it to the younger one, you know. But yeah, that was an interesting reaction from them, though. It was a good recording that night. I'll say that much. They were whooping and knocking and enjoying it, you know.
So what is your impression of how long these things have been around?
You mean on this planet, or just around me, or what?
On this planet,
Oh,
yeah. I mean,
I would just go back to all native stories, you know, and all the native stories from around the world. When I say native, I don't mean just America. I mean all around the world. And Hillel knows. There's the Yowie in Australia. Is it Urin in China? Wild man or Urin?
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah.
The Amnesty in Russia, you know, and there's something almost everywhere. And of course, you know, America alone has we have how many different climates here in this country? It's crazy.
Oh, gosh,
quite a few.
And we have one I think we have one in every climate, don't we?
Well, Ohio has a different climate every 15 minutes. So
Yes.
that's just. But yeah,
that's funny.
I know exactly what you're saying. There's, you know, when you go from the, you know, what the skunk ape running around in Florida to what's
Florida,
in the Pacific Northwest to, you know, here in Ohio to where you guys are, and then you got Texas, and everywhere everywhere in between. There's sightings of these creatures, you know, and they're all in native folklore. So
yeah, they are, and I want to say that I think they all came from the Pacific. That they probably did the Bering Strait thing, and then came from the Pacific Northwest, you know, the land bridge, and did the Pacific Northwest, and then migrated out from there, is my guess. But you don't really know how long they've been here, because, you know, natives tend to know about things and not always talk about them.
Right. But considering they've showed up in so many different native folklore and folklore of other past nations, it kind of makes me believe that they've been around for a long time.
I'll go. Well, let's say they've been here since before the settlers came.
Yes.
How about that?
Yeah, I agree with that.
We know that. And
It has to be,
and,
right?
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, logically, probably as far back as Gigantopithecus.
Yeah, it's a
Logically.
possibility. I mean, that's definitely a good theory.
And now what I'm thinking is that the Sasquatches we're seeing now in the different species are all Gigantopithecus, but it could be a mix of Gigantopithecus and chimpanzee, or it could be Gigantopithecus gorilla, or it could be Gigantopithecus orangutan. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
Or Homo sapien.
Oh, well.
Oh, yeah. Or the
right.
home that would be in there too. Sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. But you also have these devil monkeys. I have a friend that saw one, and what he described was not anything like a Sasquatch. It was basically a 6-foot white baboon with black eyes in the middle of the road eating roadkill.
Where was that at?
Well, that was in this state. That was in the state I'm in, North Carolina, too. It was probably about an hour or so from where I'm at now.
You know,
But, it was on a dirt road.
I rag on West Virginia and Bo Kennedy there from the Bump podcast about all the crazy stuff. I think North Carolina is going to come in a close second when you start talking about 6-foot white baboon. Look at this.
Well, we also have what either I don't know if it was the dogmen or the dog-faced baboons, but in eastern North Carolina, a friend of one of the researchers I'm talking to, his dad's a cop. His dad's a sheriff, and he had a friend that's a sheriff. And his friend responded to a fight call out in the woods one night, and he pulled up on what looked like 3 guys fighting, and then he turned on his main spotlight on top of the car, and it was 3 Sasquatches fighting, and it was 1 big one and 2 little ones, and they were all dog-faced is what he said. And they all stopped fighting each other and started walking towards the car. And so he just got out of there.
Can't say I blame
I'd love to see that police report.
Yeah. They already pissed off. Yeah, I think I'd have done the
3
same.
guys fighting. Can't get any backup. I'm out of here. Good night.
Yep.
3 hairy guys. You know.
Yep.
But yeah, that was about it. But yeah, it's. There's so many theories to this, and that's all we're going to do is play with theories until we get some DNA. I do want to present this idea before you guys close out the interview. Instead of us hunting a Sasquatch, why don't we try, when we know there's Sasquatches in an area, why don't we try to set up wildlife rehabilitation centers, not necessarily for the Sasquatch, but set up already established wildlife rehabilitation centers and veterinarians in case there's a medical emergency. Because here's the deal. I don't care how magical these creatures are. Sasquatches do get shot, and they do get hit by cars sometimes. And they're in a physical realm, and the more they're going to grow in population, the more run-ins they're going to have with humans, the more they're going to have the same exact problems that all the known primates that are classified that I'm studying right now are having with conservation, as far as habitat loss, pet trade could be a possibility at some point, because you know how crazy humans are. Bushmeat, I mean, you name it. You know, I believe they could be facing all these issues, but at this point they would be facing them without classification. They're already facing habitat loss.
Yep.
You know, that's already a given, and maybe that's why they're down here near me. Now, is maybe that's a sign that I need to see that they're starting to spread, that their populations are growing, and we're encroaching at this point. So I figure even if we can't get them classified, we're going to need humans that can mediate between them and other humans. Because some humans just don't want to learn how to talk to primates, non-human primates, you know.
Right.
And that's just the way it is. So for whatever reason, they could be aliens that chose, you know, this non-human primate body that they're in as a vessel. I don't know why. Maybe because its ability to evolve. I don't know. You know, but anyways, I'll try to learn these things as I go, and maybe by the time you have me on again, I'll have all the answers.
That will be fantastic.
Well, I tell you what, the first person with all the answers on this subject is the grand prize winner, for sure. Because, because that's the one thing that the more people that we talk to that are, you know, investigate this and do research, they don't have any answers. There are no answers, you know. So it's kind of.
Well, do you have I have a lot of theories. If you got a runner-up prize, but sorry, go ahead.
No, well, hey, listen, this was great listening to this. I mean, because
absolutely.
Obviously you have some great experiences out there, and I mean, Jason and I are encouraging you to keep doing this research, because I don't want him to drag me out there to try to do it. But I think
report back with us every so often too. Give us some updates.
Oh yeah, I can. Yeah, and I mean, heck, if one of you guys happen to come down or something, I might be happy to take you out with me and show you.
That'd be fantastic.
Like.
You mean when Jason comes down?
I'm gonna tell you though, the real threats are not the Sasquatches. It's the boars, the bears, the humans that you got to watch out for.
I think that's just in life in general. Right.
Yeah.
the real enemy's not Sasquatch. It's everybody else.
No, he's not. I mean, and if you watch videos on known primates, they're mostly docile creatures. You know, chimpanzees are the most violent, but they're even most of the time you only see the video. It's like only bad news makes the news.
True.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I mean that's just reality. Only bad news sells. So.
Amen.
But anyway, I really appreciate you guys having me. Is there any other questions you might have had that I didn't cover? And I know I'm bunny trailed off, and I apologize for that.
No, we enjoyed it.
That's okay.
It's very informative.
Well, hey, listen, I encourage all of our listeners, if you do have some questions for Jonathan after you listen to this episode, get a hold of us, and we'll pass them to him, and maybe we can do another little live interview.
Yeah.
We'll do it on
Q&A maybe.
Yeah, do a little Facebook live over the phone, just some audio or something, and ask some questions. So I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Do you want me to tell you? You have time for one short 5-minute story or 2-minute story?
Sure.
Okay. One night I was up at the first family, and I just want to give you a little bit of their behavior. One night I was at the first family, and I pulled in, and there was a car parked in my spot, I call it my spot because, I've been parking there for so long. And it was backed in, and the way it was backed in, it was shining its lights over the whole parking lot. It wasn't actually shining its lights towards the view, the overlook. And it was shining its lights over the whole parking lot, and it had its brights on. And so I pulled in, and I looked at him, and I just kind of signaled to him, could you turn your brights off? I didn't really care if they left the regular lights on, but just turn your brights off at least. And they didn't do anything. So I pulled out my big flashlight, and I stuck it under my arm, and I turned it on and just leaned on my car and had it shining right on their eyes. and just left it there. And it took about 30 seconds before I heard a loud crack behind their car. And I turned my flashlight off, put it away, and I looked at them and gave them the biggest, smuggest smile I could. And I heard another loud crack, and they jetted out of there. And I went over there and got in their spot and talked to my friend.
Oh my God.
I just wanted to share that. But I've had about 5 experiences like that. Another one real quick. These 5 boys pulled up there one night. This is a place where teenagers come and get high and stuff like that. Smoke pot or whatever, or drink sometimes. But these 5 guys pulled up. They were all. I'm a good sized guy. I'm 5'10", 190 pounds, weightlifter. Strong guy. But these were all bigger kids than me. And they were all sitting there talking about how tough they were. They were in a circle talking about how tough they were, how many fights they've been in. And there was one of them was talking more than the others. Man, he was just going on and on. These guys talked for 30 minutes. And then I finally heard one of the Sasquatches. And get this, all the Sasquatch did was move. It just walked. It just walked a little bit. And that guy that was running his mouth the most said, all right, guys, it's time to go. And then they all jumped in the car and left. And that's exactly. And I'm standing there with the recorder, like, what the hell just happened? Laughing my ass off at these guys. But anyway.
So those guys
that's kind of normal there.
Those guys aren't in tune with nature,
They're only as tough as they think they are.
I don't think anybody.
Anyway.
I don't think anybody out in that is as tough as they think they are. So
no, even me. It's I have to walk out there with a humble heart and know that I can get chased out of the woods too. So
Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experiences with us. I'm sure we're going to get some good feedback from this, and we enjoyed having you on and kind of opening our eyes to a little bit different angle of this,
Yeah, very informative, Jonathan. Very informative.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah. They're not. To me, they're not monsters at all. Humans. we got them beat by far. Humans, let's put it this: humans are far more unpredictable than Sasquatches, and you can try that time and time again.
I think we could put that on a T-shirt.
Yeah, that would make a good T-shirt.
Do it, and put it for your podcast. I don't need any money. Just send me a couple of shirts. But I want a hoodie. I want a hoodie if you make them.
We'll make sure we get one printed up for you. That's for sure.
Definitely.
All right.
Well, you guys stay in touch with me. I'll stay in touch with you. It's Shane and Jason, right?
Yes.
Yep.
So, all right. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Yep.
You too, brother. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.